I'm always calling a paradox with Aaron that if I make fun of him or mock him for his stupidity or criminality or predator behavior, I'm technically boosting him. So I'm going to concentrate on the Tom Cruise Mission Impossible dilemma. And it seems like Tom has a big one. And then we'll deal with the Aaron, Tom, whatever towards the end. So, Mission Impossible. Well, it started off strong. Some of the initial critical ratings and early reviews were extremely positive, as you'd expect for this series, and I've watched all the chapters. It's action packed. It has amazing stunts, probably like Guinness Book of World Records, like what Tom Cruise has done with his body and stunt work. I mean, that is really him climbing the tallest buildings. No one can deny the sheer physical effort he puts into these films. It is extraordinary. And again, when married to the right director and the right script, it is golden. And now the debate among fans is, when did it start to lose its magic? Was it the last Henry Cavill movie? Was it even earlier with the Brian De Palma film, which a lot of people hate, but I really adore because I love Brian De Palma? Or maybe Rogue was the last good one. I don't know. It's going to be a debate because this weird two-parter epic is it's going to be in trouble. So I saw part 1 of Dead Reckoning, and now they're changing that, so it's now just Dead Reckoning. Now we have Final Reckoning. I don't know, whatever. They keep changing things. So Dead P1 was okay-ish. You know, it wasn't a horrible, terrible film. Not every scene was horrifically bad. It's not The Mummy, which was probably one of his worst films. But yeah, it was kind of lackluster. As always, great stunts, some interesting twists, although they seemed a little iffy. That is about it. And apparently, part 2 is promising to be even less okay. Same thing, a lot of great stunts. And if you like the nostalgia in part 1, and I thought that was fine. I liked them calling back to the old characters, seeing some of the older actors. I thought that was fine. But apparently, they're overloading and doing Rise of Skywalker and just having tons and tons of flashback, tons of member berries, tons of nostalgia bait, and it isn't really adding up to anything. So I saw the scores, and it is incredible. So the Rotten Tomatoes start off at 85%, and now it's plummeted. It is still pretty high, right? But still, the other critic scores are, yeah, it's weird. So with Meta, which is usually considered more rigorous and more elite, the film is at 69 for now, but these things keep changing. And other scores have it lower than that. So it's within the vicinity of the really elite critics. That's 6 to 7. And the more generous score is 7 to 7.5. So for this series, those are historically low numbers. It usually is able to be comfortable at 8 out of 10 and over. Most critics do like Tom Cruise. Again, I know there's a contingent that hate him, and sometimes with proper reasons because of his, connections to the Scientology cult, which we're going to get to at the end. But nevertheless, as a filmmaker, you can definitely say he is very dedicated. So, what is happening? Well, they did certain things with part 1, which I don't want to spoil, but certain major things, and, well, getting rid of certain characters may have really hampered this part. Also, from part 1, but apparently they're switching it again, his antagonist was basically a computer. So, a computer program. You think, like, okay, that's interesting, that's a new thing, but the way it's executed is kind of flimsy. Now, this can be done, right? The Terminator series did that, where basically the main antagonist is technically, right, not the Terminators, but Skynet. But again, and I'm not saying anything bad about McQuarrie, he is a very good director, but he's not James Cameron. So James Cameron or Tolkien or whoever can make a kind of villain off camera be very imposing and be very powerful, right? It's an unrelenting threat. Like Skynet really is the threat in most of the Terminator films. But here, it just felt very janky, very cheap and silly. And it just seemed more of a cheap trick. And it just wasn't working. And also, the AI robot still needs human beings. Why, if it's so powerful? I don't know. Why not have Tom face just a full blown android? Don't know that either. I mean, we are at the level of technology. They can do that, right? You're supposed to be fighting next generation threats. So I don't know. So anyway, so yeah, the threat was kind of nebulous and it just wasn't really going anywhere. But some good action scenes there, some good action scenes in Final Reckoning, but the way it's stitched together is very iffy. So let me just go into detail with two reviews. Dan Murrell, and he hits on the nostalgia thing is way, way too much, and apparently undercuts the ending, which I don't want to give away, but basically, if you've seen Deadpool and Wolverine, I don't know where they're going to go. They're basically celebrating the franchise, celebrating the series of films. I always had issues with calling a series of films franchise, but that's what they're doing. They're congratulating a Tom Cruise film series for being a Tom Cruise film series, and apparently it's very explicit. It's very explicit. There really isn't really a character. Even Ethan Hunt apparently is just, these are just blocks of wood, and they're jumping and around and kicking and screaming, but nothing happens. There's no real story, no real character development, and apparently not even much of a theme. It is just about Mission Impossible being Mission Impossible, starring Tom Cruise. So it's kind of a very empty spectacle. And his critic rating is it's fine. Dan has this scale where if it's fine, that's in the middle. It is good enough to pay for a ticket, but that's about it. And then we get to 3C, and his verdict was actually very similar, but his issue is more the editing and how it just wasn't edited very well. So the scenes kind of work together, but then they kind of don't work together. And let me spill the big tea why that may be the case. This was not meant to be two films. Like, they advertised this really early. So if you go way, way back, the earliest trailers, it's just one film. It's meant to follow up Maverick. But then Maverick became $1 billion success. So clearly Tom Cruise and Paramount said, well, you know what? Instead of one good film, we could make two great films. And they clearly just reshot a few things, stretched out the story. And this is normal, guys. I mean, when you do like a 2 to 3 hour film, it's going to be like 6 hours, really, that you filmed. So they thought, okay, we're just going to cleverly re-edit and remarket it. And it's like, oh, it's a two-part film. But apparently they didn't do a really good story for the two parts. So now it just feels like scenes are just being thrown at you and stuff. But there is a lot of action. However, and again, this is a big film. This is almost 3 hours. So you will have to be patient for about an hour and 20 minutes before, it starts to get really exciting. So yeah, there's about an hour of just, well, it's kind of boring. So he put that into his score. He still says, okay, the action is excellent, excellent action, but the drama, suspense, and comedy is kind of weak and lame. So he says, it's just good enough to pay a ticket for. And that's where we are. It's good enough to pay a ticket for, but no more than that. But this is a huge letdown because the series usually is a trailblazer. It's progressing the field. It is usually considered the top rank of all action films. So it's not John Wick anymore. So there you go. But just on a final note with the movie news, Ellie Tom is very excited for Ballerina. He's going to work with Ana de Armas, and he says, yes, the Ballerina is going to be really great. So the hype for Ballerina is real, but the hype for Mission Impossible Not Reckoning is, well, it's not really reckoning. And there we go. Now let's get to the cult end of Tom with Aaron. And apparently Aaron put out this fake dumb video, which I already criticized, where Tom was announcing leaving Scientology. Well, no, he's not. And I find it curious because there were some apparently protests in the UK, and Tom had people arrested. Now, if he wants to be part of the cult, I'm going to condemn that. But again, he is a movie star. He is a film actor. So I have to respect him at that level. And he is an extraordinary actor. And again, it is normal for actors to, in interviews, to say certain topics are off limits. However, it is Scientology, which is a vicious fascist cult. I think it's legit to ask him about it, but apparently he censors people to do this. And apparently now he's arresting people. I don't see the legitimacy of that. Now, to be fair, that was Britain, right? And Britain doesn't have the First Amendment. They have a very different legal system. It's very similar to the US, but it's not identical. So I'm not sure how or why he's doing that, but that's not good. As far as I know, there are not really major protests being planned in the US around Upon Reckoning. I'm kind of torn whether we should have them because honestly, this film is going to be doing very poorly. It did poorly before due to Oppenheimer and the IMAX controversy, which I'll return to, but it doesn't seem like it's that good. So I think it's going to be very disappointing for most Mission Impossible fans. Even if you can hand wave the vicious fascist cult he's a part of, which I don't think we should, because it's, a vicious fascist cult. Apparently this is more rented than see it, which is pretty shocking to say that about a Tom Cruise film. Whatever you say about Tom Cruise films, they are theatrical experiences. They are massive projects. But apparently, The Curse of the Mummy is back, and although this doesn't seem to be a terrible film, critics are being a little hard on it who don't like it, but the critics who do like it are saying it's one of the best films of all time. So there we go. So either we're just a bunch of disappointed critics, we're not tracking the popular feeling, but I'm going to guess a lot of even diehard fans are going to be like, well, it was a movie, and it movied. Is it enough to pay the ticket for? I'm having some doubts. Even without the Scientology factor, apparently it is what it is. It's acceptable, which is usually what the Mission Impossible films are not. They are many things, but they're not just acceptable. They are good or great, but being just acceptable is a huge decline in my eyes.